All right, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, I think. It's all about how we can really amp up learning for our littlest learners, those preschool and kindergarten kiddos, with the help of technology and digital media.
Yeah, it's really become such a hot topic lately, hasn't it? And we've got a fantastic guide for this exploration, Brian Perling's book, Teaching in the Digital Age for Preschool and Kindergarten, Enhancing Curriculum with Technology.
Now, what we really love about Perling's approach is that it's not just some theoretical mumbo-jumbo.
Exactly. He gets right down to the nitty-gritty, and that's what we're going to be digging into today.
We're after those practical, concrete examples of how to smartly weave technology into early childhood education.
Not just using it for the sake of using it.
Right, right. It's got to have a purpose. And our focus today is really threefold. We want to see how technology can really juice up the curriculum across different subjects, make learning just irresistible for those little ones, and, open up cool new ways for them to share what they're learning.
And I think right off the bat, that foreword by Rick Fernandez in the book gives us a really intriguing peek into Perling's work at Catherine Cook School in Chicago.
If Fernandez talks about Perling having this almost natural knack for taking technology, something that can be very complex, and making it work in a way that really respects how young children develop, both socially, emotionally, and, in terms of those thinking skills.
And what really impressed Fernandez was how technology in Perling's hands actually amplified how those kids interacted with each other. It made their learning deeper, richer, more meaningful.
Yeah, it wasn't just about showing off the latest gadget. It was about intention, purpose.
And that's such a vital takeaway for anyone working with young children and technology. It's not about the bells and whistles, right? It's about finding those perfect moments where technology doesn't replace those valuable hands-on experiences we know are so important, but actually adds another dimension. It makes learning more accessible, more engaging.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. Chapter 1 really lays the groundwork for what Perling calls an integrated approach to the curriculum.
Yeah, and a big part of that, he argues, is professional development for teachers and the power of those learning networks, the PLNs.
Yeah, he even mentioned some real-world examples like those Twitter chats, #GuestTechChat and #KinderChat. I've actually popped into a few of those. Pretty insightful stuff.
They really are. But, the book also acknowledges some of the very real hurdles that can make this whole integrated approach a bit of a challenge.
Totally. I mean, he talks about that almost inevitable dip in energy after a really inspiring professional development workshop.
Oh, tell me about it. Been there, done that.
Right. And he even uses this idea of a peace island. I think it's from The Power of Guidance, that book, where that initial enthusiasm for a new initiative can kind of fizzle out over time.
Yeah,
It's sad but true.
it is. It is. And, the daily grind of teaching, the stress that comes with the job, that can really throw a wrench in things too.
Yeah, and he suggests keeping a work journal as a way to manage that stress and maintain focus.
It can be so easy to get pulled in a million different directions.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes that can lead to, getting so caught up in one particular subject area that others kind of get pushed to the side. It happens.
It does. It does. And that's why it's important to be mindful, right? To be aware of those potential pitfalls as you're exploring new ways to integrate technology.
Now, getting into the meat of integration, Perling introduces this idea of a threaded unit approach.
Ah, yes. This is where things start to get really interesting.
It is. It's essentially this really cool concept of having skills and concepts kind of flow naturally between different units of study,
Yeah.
instead of things being all compartmentalized.
And that helps kids see those connections between subjects, right? Makes the learning experience more holistic, more meaningful.
Exactly. And he gives a really clear example talking about how, say, exploring soils in science could then seamlessly transition into a unit about worms, and then bam, you're into literacy with activities like reading Diary of a Worm, creating a worm word wall, all that good stuff.
It's brilliant. And to help teachers visualize this whole process, he even suggests creating what he calls a threaded curriculum overview sheet.
So smart, right? And to show that this whole integration idea isn't brand new, Perling shares a story from way back when he was using an apple thigh in the classroom.
Oh, wow. Blast from the past, the apple thigh.
I know, right? Talk about old school.
Yeah.
But he was using it to create a simple pattern matching game with attribute blocks. And it's a great reminder that even with those early, less sophisticated technologies, you could still enhance hands-on learning.
It's a really crucial point, I think. The heart of it all isn't about how fancy the technology is, it's about how you use it to deepen and expand those learning experiences.
All right, so moving on to Chapter 2, we shift gears into the world of science. And right away, Perling zeroes in on the power of inquiry-based and project-based learning.
Oh, I love this stuff. It's where kids really get to be those little scientists, asking their own questions, driving their own learning.
Right. And it reminded me of this amazing rainforest unit we did back in elementary school.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
It was. The highlight was a video conference with Robert Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic.
No way.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, that personal connection really, really stuck with me.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Making those real-world connections, sparking that genuine interest.
Absolutely. And Perling walks us through a fantastic example of this in action with a kindergarten rainforest project. It all started with the kids being fascinated by the classroom loft and wanting to turn it into a rainforest.
Yeah.
And, from there, it was off to the races. They had questions, they researched using books, videos, apps, all sorts of things. They came up with ideas, they drew their plans, they built and experimented with materials. And then, the best part, they got to reflect on what worked, what didn't, and adapt their creation.
Oh, that's so cool. It's that whole design thinking process in action. And it's amazing how even those little kindergartners can really get involved in that kind of problem solving and creative thinking when you give them the opportunity.
And the way Perling talks about weaving technology into this project is really smart. Like, they used that spacecraft 3D app for a virtual space exploration experience.
Oh, I love that app. It really opens up a whole world of possibilities for exploring different environments.
Right. And then they used Doodlecast Pro to record those observations and questions the kids had right over screenshots of what they were seeing. Which, by the way, is a really neat way to gauge their initial understanding of the topic.
It's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
not just about what they're seeing, but what they're thinking and wondering about it.
Yeah, it adds that extra layer of insight. And then there's this other example, connecting classrooms across different parts of the country through video conferencing.
Oh, yeah. He talks about Barb Fisher's class in Chicago, Skyping with Amanda Bite's class down in Florida to learn about the seasons.
Right. And the Chicago kids got to ask those Florida kids all sorts of questions about what fall looks and feels like in a totally different environment. I love that it puts the kids in charge of their own learning, positions them as experts on their own little corner of the world.
And it builds that awareness of different places and cultures. It's fantastic.
Oh, for sure. And Perling wraps up the science chapter by touching on how even dramatic play can be enriched with technology.
Yeah, he uses the example of a veterinarian app to help kids grasp those different roles and vocabulary in a vet clinic.
And it all ties back to that social emotional development and even those early writing skills that are so crucial at this age.
It's so smart how he connects all those different developmental threads.
Right. Okay, so on to Chapter 3, Mathematics. And one of the first things Perling talks about is using video recordings as a tool for self-assessment in math.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Right. So imagine kids explaining how they're solving a problem out loud, and then they get to watch themselves later and actually spot any mistakes they might have made.
Oh, wow. That's a great way for them to become aware of their own thinking process, to kind of step outside themselves and analyze what they're doing. It's so valuable for their learning.
It is. It is. And, he even mentions a practical tip. Make sure you have a stable device mount to keep that camera steady.
Makes sense. No one wants shaky footage.
He also talks about using stop-motion video with apps like iMotion HD or I Can Animate to document those awesome block creations kids make.
Ugh, stop motion, so much fun. It really encourages kids to think sequentially, to plan out their building process, and then, of course, there's that whole storytelling element when they get to narrate what they've done.
Right. And it also helps develop their spatial reasoning, which is, so important in math. And then there's this other really neat assessment idea, recording kids explaining how they're using technology at those math learning stations.
Oh, that's so smart. It gives you a window into how they're thinking about the technology itself, not just the math concepts they're working on.
Exactly. It paints a fuller picture of their understanding. And then the chapter shifts to exploring how those early programming concepts are actually already woven into a lot of the daily routines we have in early childhood classrooms.
Yeah, things like giving and following directions, understanding sequences, sorting objects, all those foundational skills that really lay the groundwork for computational thinking.
And they don't even need a screen for that. It's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about building those logical thinking skills in a very natural, hands-on way.
And speaking of hands-on, He then introduces the idea of using board games to teach coding concepts.
Oh, yeah, he mentions Robot Turtle specifically, where kids get to program the turtle to reach a certain spot on the board.
Right. It's such a fun way to introduce those programming ideas without any screens involved. And then finally, in the math chapter, he gets into non-textual programming with tools like Cubeto,
Oh, those adorable little wooden robots that kids program with those colorful blocks.
right? And Bebop, where they program a little robot to move around on a map of the classroom.
Oh, I've seen those in action. It's amazing how quickly those little ones pick up on the logic of it all.
And it connects so beautifully to developing those early map skills, which are also tied to math.
It's really about spatial reasoning and problem solving in a very concrete, hands-on way.
All right, so now we're whisked away to Chapter 4, all about literacy. And this covers language, reading, writing, the whole 9 yards. And Perling starts off by urging us to think outside the box when it comes to literacy experiences.
Move beyond just sitting down with a book. Make it interactive, multisensory, engaging.
Yeah, and he shares this story about creating a shadow puppet show based on where the wild things are, which is just so creative.
I love it. It takes a familiar story and brings it to life in a whole new way.
Right. And then he talks about the evolving role of the school library, how it's moving from just a place to store books to, this dynamic hub for information access and really fostering a love of reading. And technology plays a huge role in that.
Oh, absolutely. He mentions things like literature apps with those read-to-me functions, digital documentation tools like Doodle Buddy and iTalk Recorder, all sorts of things that can really open up the world of reading for those little ones.
Yeah, and he has some really innovative ideas for extending the library's reach using technology, like offering remote access to e-libraries, preloading e-readers for classroom use, all those things that make books accessible anytime, anywhere.
And it's not just about access, right? He talks about using Pinterest to share book recommendations, creating those engaging video book talks, even hosting summer reading challenges to keep kids excited about books even when school's out.
So important, right? And speaking of keeping kids engaged, he emphasizes how important it is to honor those individual interests.
Oh, for sure. You got to tap into what they're passionate about. He gives a great example of a class that got to choose the next book in a series they were reading together online. They even got to track the package as it was being shipped.
I love that. It gives them a real-world connection to the whole process, from choosing a book to actually receiving it.
And then there's the whole creative world of digital illustration and ebook creation that he talks about, using apps like Drawing Pad, Doodle Buddy, and Book Creator.
Oh, yeah, those are fantastic. And he talks about the importance of sharing these creations with families,
Yeah.
as a way to really show off those budding literacy skills.
It's such a powerful way to celebrate their accomplishments and to involve families in the learning process.
And then there's this idea of kids becoming those little classroom reporters, creating comics and newsletters using an app called Comic Book to share what's happening in their classroom.
Yeah.
It's not just about literacy, it's about building that sense of community and collaboration.
Oh, I love that. It gives them a voice, a platform to share their experiences.
And then, believe it or not, he even connects Legos to storytelling.
Legos, huh? That's pretty cool.
Right. He talks about how building with Legos can actually help kids understand story elements and those abstract concepts in a very concrete way.
Yeah.
And he even suggests using a voice recorder app and QR codes to link their logo creations to their own spoken narratives.
So smart, right? It's like taking those Lego worlds to a whole new level.
Yeah, it's blending the physical and the digital in such a creative way. And then there's podcasting, which, we're all about, of course.
Of course.
But he's talking about using a simple voice recorder app to have kids create podcasts about classroom events, maybe even just plan an imaginary trip together.
Yeah, it's a great way for them to practice those speaking and listening skills, to learn how to work together and express themselves clearly.
And finally, in this jam-packed literacy chapter, he talks about giving kids the power to create their own simple apps.
Now that's pretty forward thinking.
It is. And he mentions a tool called POP that lets them import their own photos and drawings and then link them together to make those little interactive experiences.
It's like they become those little tech developers.
I know, right? And he shares an example of a kid who made an airplane app during Writer's Workshop. Just incredible.
So cool. Okay, so Chapter 5 takes us to the wonderful world of art. And Perling tackles a pretty common concern head-on right at the beginning, that technology might actually hinder creativity, instead of sparking it.
Yeah, there's that fear that screens will somehow stifle those artistic impulses.
Right. But he makes a really strong case for how technology can actually provide a whole new set of tools for artistic expression.
Yeah, he even mentions researchers like Katzborn and Contro and Foster who've done a lot of work in this area. And one of the coolest examples he gives is using augmented reality to bring kids' artwork to life.
Ah, yes, with that app called Quiver.
Yes, kids color those printable sheets, and then when you view them through a tablet or phone, those creations pop out in 3D.
Oh, that's so magical. I've seen kids go nuts for that.
It's incredible. And then there's stop motion animation using an app like Stop Motion Studio. It's not just about art, it's about building patience, perseverance, all those skills that come with that painstaking process of creating those animations frame by frame.
And then there's that whole storytelling element again. He suggests having kids create those silent loops and then add their own dialogue later, which is so cool.
And then taking things to a whole other dimension, literally he talks about 3D printing, using a tool like the Doodle 3D Wi-Fi box.
Oh, wow. 3D printing, that opens up a whole world of possibilities. Kids can actually design and create their own three-dimensional objects.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And he even suggests checking with your local library. A lot of libraries have 3D printers these days.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more common. And then there's this app called Foldify.
Oh, I love that one. Kids can draw on those digital templates and then fold them up to make those 3D paper creations.
Right. Cubes, cars, little characters, all sorts of things. And it's not just about art, it's about developing those fine motor skills, which, are so important for writing and all sorts of other things.
And he suggests using it for all sorts of creative activities like brainstorming story ideas, designing characters, even adding cool new elements to the block center.
So versatile.
Yeah.
And then there's this really neat idea of integrating those simple circuits into artwork.
Oh, yeah, using sticky circuits from Chibitronics, kids can actually make artwork that lights up.
So cool, right? It's like a blend of art and science.
Yeah.
And then there's Chatterpix, this really fun app that lets kids bring their drawings to life by animating the mouths.
Oh, yeah, they can record their own voices and make those characters talk. It's hilarious.
And then there's the idea of creating a classroom art gallery where kids get to write their own artist statements about their work.
Oh, that's so great for building confidence and helping them reflect on their creative process.
And then finally, in the art chapter, he talks about an app called Blokify, where kids can design their own virtual skyscrapers and then even 3D print them.
Wow, so they're like little architects.
I know, right? And it ties into those construction concepts, like understanding why buildings need a wide base for stability. He even suggests using QR codes to link those designs to audio or video descriptions created by the kids themselves.
It's like a multimedia art experience. Okay, on to Chapter 6, which takes us into the world of music. And Perling kicks things off with an app called Button Bass, which lets kids create and mix their own music.
I love that app. It's so simple. Even the youngest kids can jump right in and start experimenting with different sounds and rhythms.
Yeah, it's a great introduction to electronic music. And then for those kids who are ready to take things to the next level, there's Beatwave.
Oh, yeah. This one lets them explore different instrument sounds, create more complex compositions, even share their mixes on different platforms.
I had no idea you could share those creations. That's really cool.
Right. And then there's DJ Mix Kids Pro, which, brings that whole DJ experience into dramatic play.
So fun. They can add their own beats and effects to familiar songs.
And then there's Incredibox, which
Where-
is all about collaborative music making.
Oh, yeah. Kids drag and drop those icons onto those little animated characters to create different sounds and rhythms.
And Perling suggests taking it a step further by trying to recreate those synchronized sounds off the computer, which is a great way to practice teamwork and listening skills.
Really creative. And then he introduces Dash, this really cool robot from Wonder Workshop that can actually be programmed to play a xylophone.
Oh, I've seen those. It's amazing. It brings those coding concepts to life through music. And then there's Makey Makey, this awesome invention kit that lets kids turn everyday objects into musical instruments.
I love that one. It really makes them think outside the box and explore those cause and effect relationships.
And finally, in the music chapter, he talks about Patap, this online tool that creates both animations and sounds in response to keyboard presses or touches on the screen.
Oh, that's fun for group play. They can even play with the sounds and letters in their names. Okay, on to Chapter 7, which delves into the world of social studies. And Perling starts off by discussing the creation of a peace island, or peace center, in the classroom.
Yeah, it's like a designated space for kids to work on those social emotional skills and learn how to resolve conflicts peacefully.
He suggests including things like puppets, cozy chairs, and a peace wheel, which, provides those concrete strategies for dealing with those tricky social situations.
And then there's this really heartwarming idea he calls the secret e-reader.
Oh, yeah, using video conferencing to have family members who live far away read to the class. It's such a beautiful way to connect kids with those loved ones and to promote a love of reading.
And then he talks about creating feelings books, taking photos of kids showing different emotions and then labeling them so they can use those books as a tool for understanding and talking about feelings.
So important for those little ones who are still learning how to navigate that whole emotional world.
Absolutely. And then he gets into this idea of becoming digital citizens, how even young kids can start learning about responsible technology use.
And a big part of that is connecting with others in positive ways using technology, email, blogs, Twitter, Facebook, all those tools that can help us build community and share our ideas.
And he specifically mentions creating a class blog using platforms like WordPress or Blogger as a way to share those classroom happenings with families and the wider community.
Oh, that's such a great way to keep everyone in the loop and to celebrate all that awesome learning that's happening.
And then there's social media. He talks about how teachers can use platforms like Twitter and Facebook to share quick glimpses into the classroom and connect with other educators.
Yeah, it's a great way to build those professional learning networks and stay inspired.
And then there's this really neat idea of using QR codes to support independence at learning centers. So you can have a QR code that links to a video of you explaining a certain activity.
Oh, I love that. It gives those kids the support they need right when they need it without having to interrupt you.
And it's also really helpful for families who visit during open house. They can scan those codes and see exactly what's happening at each center.
So clever.
Yeah.
And then finally, in the social studies chapter, he talks about using video conferencing to bring experts into the classroom.
Yeah, it's like a virtual field trip. You can connect with professionals from all walks of life without ever leaving the classroom.
It really opens up a world of possibilities for those kids. Okay, moving on to chapter 8, which focuses on health. And he starts off by talking about having kids create how-to videos for self-care activities.
Like washing their hands, brushing their teeth, all those important routines.
And he talks about the value of having them really think about their audience and the steps involved in those activities.
Right. It's not just about doing it. It's about explaining it to someone else.
And then there's this idea of creating voiceover videos about safety in different parts of the school.
Yeah, like on the playground, in the hallways, wherever those potential hazards might be.
And it's a great way for them to learn those safety rules and to share that knowledge with their peers.
And then he talks about creating PSAs or even radio commercials where kids share important health messages.
Oh, I love that. It gives them a platform to advocate for their own health and well-being.
And then there's the idea of creating classroom signage using digital tools like Drawing Pad or Doodle Buddy.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. They can design signs for classroom rules, important reminders, all sorts of things.
And it gives them a sense of ownership over their learning environment.
Absolutely. And finally, in the health chapter, he talks about using the Toka Doctor app, which lets kids explore basic anatomy and self-care in a really playful way.
It's a great way to make learning about the body fun and engaging.
Okay. And our final chapter, Chapter 9, takes us to the world of physical education. And Portland starts off by talking about child-led video modeling of gross motor skills.
Yeah, so kids record each other performing different movements like jumping, hopping, skipping, all that good stuff.
And he gives some great examples like a movement scavenger hunt and you jump, I jump.
And he suggests using a stable tripod to make sure those videos are nice and clear.
Makes sense. You don't want any shaky footage.
And then he talks about using digital portfolios like Seesaw for assessing and sharing progress in those gross motor skills.
Oh, that's a great way to document those milestones and to share that progress with families.
And just like with other subject areas, he suggests using video conferencing to connect with physical education professionals. Bring those experts right into the classroom.
Yeah, it's like a virtual coaching session.
And then finally, he talks about teachers creating those parent game demonstration videos.
Oh, I love that idea.
Right, so teachers can record themselves demonstrating games that families can play together at home.
It's a great way to extend learning beyond the classroom and to get families involved in supporting those physical skills.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Brian Pearling's teaching in the digital age, I think the biggest takeaway is just how powerful technology can be when it's used intentionally. With a deep understanding of how young children learn and grow, It really opens up all these amazing opportunities for them to explore, create, share, and connect with the world around them.
It is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Even the simplest digital tools can totally change a child's perspective, open up these whole new ways of learning and expressing themselves. So I guess the big question for all of us listening is, what's that next small step you can take to explore these possibilities? What really clicked for you during this conversation that you're excited to dive into?
That's a perfect question, right?
Mhm.
Because all the resources and examples we talked about, they're really just a starting point, a little taste of what's out there. So we encourage you to dig deeper into those tools and approaches that really resonated with you, the ones that fit your passions and the needs of those amazing kids in your life. There's a whole universe of creative educational possibilities just waiting to be discovered.
So go out there and explore.
Absolutely. And we'll see you back here for our next deep dive.
See ya.